Alright, we're going to start part 3 of how to create your pumpkin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to fill in these different little sections of the pumpkin with color. And not only are we going to use color, but we're going to use the gradient tool. The gradient tool is going to help to give this a more realistic look, as if the pumpkin is shaded and we have a light source. And we're going to imagine right now that we're going to have a light source coming from the left side of the pumpkin, shining in this direction, and then coming across. So what we're going to do to start here is use the gradient tool. Or what we're actually going to do is we're going to open up our panels here so we can use the tools. Okay, and we're just going to expand this dock here, and we're going to be using primarily this gradient tool and also the swatches. Now, if you're looking for these tools and you can't find them, then you can go to the window tab or your window menu, and you can scroll down and check them or open them. So if you can't find one, simply come in here to the window menu and scroll down and find it. Once you find it, you can place it over here and organize them how you like, simply by selecting here in this little gray bar and dragging them into the position that you want. You can switch them around or delete them simply by selecting the X, or collapse them with the minus button here. But what we're going to do today is use this swatch palette and also the gradient palette here, and we're going to create our gradients with this. Now, we also need to look at our toolbox here and notice that we have our tools here for color and our gradient, and also our none. That's filling a shape with no color or none, as if it's see-through. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to use our gradient tool, and we're going to use this slider bar here to place our colors. Now, right now we have two colors. We have black on the right and white on the left. And if we're using these colors, that is all we're going to have when we select a shape and place color in this shape. What we're going to have is a color that runs from white on the left to black on the white, exactly as you see it here in the gradient slider bar. So if we place colors here, and that's what we're going to do with our swatch color, we're going to take a color, and since it's a pumpkin, we're going to make it orange. So if we take a color here, we're going to place our cursor over the color that we want, and we're going to select it and then drag it up and onto the gradient slider. And you'll notice that there's a nice little bar that pops up when it's activated. So I let go, and now that color is on the slider bar. And I'm going to do the same thing with the yellow swatch and drag it and place it on the line. And notice now that we have 4 colors on the line, and I can move them and place them any direction I want. And you can also see them in the selected shape here that was selected before we started dragging and dropping these colors onto the slider. You can see whichever selection here is, whichever shape is selected will be the color will be dropped right in here. Alright, so to add colors, I simply select the color and drag it up and onto the slider of the gradient bar. And if I want to get rid of a color, which I do want to get rid of the white and the black, I'm going to select it and drag downward until that paint bucket disappears. And then I'll move my colors into position where I want them. So I'm going to select the black paint bucket and drag down, and it's gone, and let go, and now you can see the color choices that I have here. Alright, now what we can do at this point is we can simply replace this color into each of these shapes. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and select another shape. We'll select on the opposite side of the pumpkin so you can see what happens here. We'll select this shape here, and we will place this color into that shape. There we go. And you can see I just selected the gradient tool here on the bottom. Now there's also another way that we can do this, and that is we can select a shape we want to fill with this color or this gradient. So I select my shape. I can take my eyedropper tool and select the color that I want, and the shape that is selected, this color will then fill into the shape that I want. So let's do that. Alright, now As we're beginning to talk about the gradient tool here, let's explore how the gradient tool works. To begin, the color always moves from the left side to the right side of the slider bar. So you'll notice that it's in the same fashion here in the shapes that I've filled in. So what I'm going to show you now is I can take these colors on the gradient bar and I can switch them around, and you'll notice that the color always runs from left to right. So whatever color's on the left will begin on the left and move in that direction. Now let's go ahead and return these to the way that I actually do want them. And I can also use my gradient tool to set the direction of which way the gradient is going to flow or move. So right now it's from left to right. Now the gradient tool works where the first click of the mouse, I begin my gradient, and then I will drag that tool in the direction that I want the gradient to go, and the last place where you see the tool ending up is where the gradient will end up on the slider bar. So if we begin our selection, it starts with the yellow and then it moves to orange, so you can see it's going to go in the opposite direction as what we have right now. Okay, so I just switched it around. Let's go ahead and select this again, and now I'm going to drag in a different direction with my gradient tool. So let's select it. Now I'm going to begin here, so this will be where the yellow will start, and then the orange will get the color will get progressively darker into orange if I move in this direction. So I'm going to click and drag, and it'll go from yellow to orange. There we go. So yellow and then orange. Also notice that if I drag a shorter amount of the gradient tool, it'll make a much more abrupt change, and if I start farther out and drag farther away, it's a much more soft or slow gradient. So there's not much change here, so you can control how much the gradient is actually working. And we want to keep the same, so we're going to use our eyedropper. So let's go ahead and select the gradient that we're going to use throughout this whole project. Oops, and there we go. And so now we have our gradient here ready to go. Okay, and so let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to deselect this, and I'm going to refill it with the eyedropper, and there we go. Now we have the same gradient running across here. Let's go ahead and select the other shapes and continue on with our filling of these shapes. And you can see it's very simple, very quick. I could also do a select tab and do a select all and select all the shapes at one time. There we go. Now we've got our pumpkin filled with color, and you can see that they're all the same. Okay, now our light is coming from the left to the right, so let's go ahead and work with this a little bit. I'm going to make the color a little bit lighter or brighter on the left and darker as we move to the right. So let's go ahead and move the slider bar over just a little bit. Nothing's happened yet. I'm going to select this shape, and let's move this over so we have a little more yellow on the left, and we'll do the second shape, do just a little bit less, and gradually use less and less of the yellow, and then we'll progressively get darker using more orange and even a little more orange, and there we go. Now it looks like we have a nice shaded pumpkin. Next we'll do the top of the pumpkin. Alright, hope you found that to be helpful, and if you have any questions, ask me in class or email me, and I'll be more than happy to help you. I hope you're successful, and I hope you found this lesson successful.